Hello, Lakers Nation. Welcome into the LakersNation.com podcast. I am Trevor Lane. We are, as of right now, I guess about 29 days now until the Lakers play basketball again, kicking off preseason action coming up at the beginning of October. The countdown is on. I can't wait to see the Lakers back out on the floor. Joining me tonight, we're going to have one other person stopping by as well, but back by popular demand, it's my guy, Donnie. Donnie, how you doing? Oh, Donnie was muted. Donnie is not ready to roll just yet. He's getting that sorted. But I can't wait for the Lakers season to start while Donnie's fixing his mic there. I can't wait for the season to get started. I'm excited. There we go.
I hate this. Every time we get on here, I forget to change the setting back and forth, man.
It'll become like a habit at some point, right? Yeah. But how you doing, man? I'm excited to come on here and talk some Lakers basketball. We're going to talk a little bit about the ideal start to the season. What are not necessarily, they need to go 10-0 or whatever, but what kind of things we're hoping to see? What are some of the storylines we're hoping to see? We're going to talk about that, and then we'll take some questions and comments as well.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I just ran up here after eating dinner, so there's that. But I'm excited to talk some Lakers basketball as well.
Yeah, there's obviously still plenty of things going on in the sports world in general. We've got the NFL kicking off just hours away at this point. I'm excited for that baseball season. The Dodgers, unfortunately, not playing so well tonight, but in general, doing pretty well. And then we've got NBA basketball coming back. It's a great time on the sports calendar. So I'm excited. Thank goodness it's finally September. And then we're going to be back to NBA basketball soon enough. Donnie, let's dive in. Oh, 10-0. I'm fine with 9-1. Okay. We'll take 9-0, or we'll take 9-1 if the Lakers could do that. But let's go with this. Let's start listing off. What are some of the things that we want to hear happening around the Lakers heading into the season? Like, what would be the ideal start coming out of training camp and these first few games of preseason?
In terms of like narratives or the way that they
start like what's something, I mean, I guess one thing to start with is just everybody's healthy. Like that, of course, is going to be a big thing. What is it that we need? Everybody needs to be healthy. Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, all these guys that have, maybe been a little banged up over the summer. We need to hear everybody is healthy. That certainly is a prerequisite heading into the season. What else are we hoping to hear?
Well, I want to hear that, and I want to hear about the improvement for players. I mean, it's more or less like, you hear about these things, but obviously we still need to see it in action. For example, is this the year Vando adds that vaunted corner three? That's one thing I'm looking forward to, potentially several years in the making. I want to hear about AR and how his journey went with adding on more size, and if he's able to play well with it, because sometimes that does, have a bit of an adjustment period for players where maybe they add a little bit more size, their shots off for a little bit, they have to adjust to it, and then go from there. And other than that, the main thing for me, honestly, is just if they're healthy, I want to see, Gabe, if he's healthy and back to 100% and maybe ready to contribute next year. But that's more or less what I'm looking forward to.
Are you optimistic at all that Jared Vanderbilt's going to be able to hit that corner three? Because it feels like we've been waiting on that he hasn't been a Laker for that long, but it seems like this has been the talking point for a bit now about Vando. If he can just shoot decent from the corners, is this the year that it finally happens, or is that just wishful thinking?
He had that one quarter that he shot really good from. So, I mean,
that's true.
If worst comes to worst, you could just stick him in that same corner, right? And hopefully you get the same production. But I mean,
just
I'm not
one quarter only for Vando.
that was the Cam thing last year too. It's like put Cam in this one specific corner, and then he's good. If you put him in the other one, he's not good. Anyway, so if it was Vando, if we get him to 34-35%, that's fine by me, as long as he's stepping up to take the shots. I don't want him shying away from the shots. I don't want him taking 10 shots, 10 threes a game, but you got to take the open ones. You have to keep the defense honest. So if he can make 34-35% of them consistently, I'm fine with that.
Empire Jeff checking in. Thanks there, Jeff. Happy to have you here with some love for Donnie. Joining us, jumping in. It's a party. Mark Gunnels. Mark,
Yeah.
I got it. How are you right now, Mark? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Your Chiefs play football in less than 24 hours. How are you feeling?
Definitely not nervous. It's week one. So even if Baltimore wins this game, got to beat us in the playoffs. So
All
doesn't
right.
really mean much for us, to be honest with you.
This is like the night before Christmas in a way for football fans. So Mark, we're talking about what we're hoping to hear about the Lakers. One of the things that we've talked about so far is that Jared Vanderbilt will get the corner three going. Of course, that everybody's going to be healthy. Donnie brought up a few other things, but what's one thing that you are hoping to hear in the buzz leading up to and during training camp about this Lakers team that you would say, man, these are the kinds of things that we want to be hearing about this team that gives us some optimism about this team moving forward?
I mean, I think it starts with JJ Redick. I mean, I think you have to start there. We've been talking about it all offseason about his change in philosophy compared to Darvin Ham, kind of with the more modern day NBA. So I think that's the most exciting thing, especially when you consider the lack of moves on the actual roster. So you're pretty much bringing back the same team, and the biggest change is clearly JJ Redick on the sideline.
Yeah, is JJ able to come in and make that difference and do the things that Darvin Ham doesn't? Donnie, you and I earlier today, we took a look at Austin Reeves, and that breakdown is going to be dropping tomorrow morning. So be on the lookout for that. We spent like a half an hour breaking down Austin's game from last season and where we expect him to go this coming season. But one of the things that we unfortunately noted as we were going through the stats was how Darvin Ham sticking with that Taurean Prince in the starting lineup thing just destroyed all of their lineups, destroyed all of their advanced metrics. And then as soon as Rui comes in, or even Jared Vanderbilt, it's like the sky's part and the Lakers are good. How confident are you, Donnie, in JJ Redick and his ability to just not make the mistakes that Darvin Ham made?
100%. I am 110% confident that he is not going to make the same mistakes because he's too smart and he's got too good of a head on his shoulders to look at that and say, I want to do the exact same thing that Darvin did. There's no way. Even if he's not like into the analytics and all that stuff, I mean, you'd have to think the previous guy got fired. So what you need to do, your prerogative is to do what he didn't do the opposite of what he did if you want to keep your job. That's just common sense. So yeah, I have 100% confidence that he'll definitely tackle it a little bit differently. I mean, the problem with Darvin was that he had these situations, but the big deal with him is that he was so stubborn. He refused to change outside of what he wanted to do specifically. He went down every single lane that was what he wanted to do and refused to approach any other situation or think outside of the box. So I don't think we'll have that same problem for the most part with JJ. I do think JJ is a bit of, his personality is a little bit kind of striking. He seems like he'd be a type of guy that also be a little bit stubborn too, but I at least think he'll go the opposite way from Darvin.
I don't expect to see him make the same mistakes that Darvin does. I think there will be other mistakes that JJ makes just because he hasn't coached before. Like there's going to be mistakes made. I don't know exactly what those are going to be just yet, but I don't think they're going to be the same ones as Darvin. By the way, this is hilarious. This is that mythical Jared Vanderbilt shot chart here. Like, there it is for the 2022-2023 season.
40% shooter.
The one corner, 40% from the one corner. If he just stays in that one, that's all we need to do. Vando, just shoot from the one corner, and then everything is going to be just fine. I think that's one of the things actually. Yeah. Cam, was Cam the opposite corner? Because if so, we could just put him on opposite sides.
You got two 40% shooters right there.
There you go. You turned Cam Reddish and Jared Vanderbilt into 40% three-point shooters if you just put them in the right spots on the floor. Just put them in opposite corners.
What a way to manufacture those numbers, man.
Right?
We're elite shooting team now, baby.
There it is. As long as everybody shoots from one specific spot, their best spot on the floor, that's all you're allowed to do. I do think how JJ uses Vando is actually going to be really important because obviously he can't just spot up in one corner. I think we're going to have to see a lot more off-ball movement from him, and that's something that JJ Redick is going to be trying to incorporate in general, is more off-ball movement. But I think Jared Vanderbilt, using him more as a screener, using him in more handoff situations and things like that, that's going to be something that I'm going to be watching for and listening for in the early going, particularly when it comes to JJ Redick. Is he able to get the best out of not just Jared Vanderbilt, but some of the other guys as well, maybe in some ways that Darvin Ham didn't?
Yeah, I also really liked with Vando when he would take it and go. I think he's got really good playmaking chops from that standpoint as well. So I'd like to see him doing that a bit more too.
Yeah. Do you think that, I know we talked about this before, you think he should start? I'm kind of curious to hear your opinion, him or Rui. It's kind of the discussion, I feel like.
I leaned Rui just for continuity's sake. But Donnie, I know you had this crazy theory about Vando starting, but at the 2. If you had to pick, yes, go ahead.
I gotta say,
explain it more.
I gotta say that was because Vando was at the top of my head because we were talking about him so much. I didn't think about the fact that if they were to split him up, the better fit would be Max. So there's that.
Right. Okay. That's
okay.
That's
we
fair.
Gotta clarify that.
Important context to add there. Yes. If you had to pick between Rui and Vando, who are you going with?
I think it's Vando. This is kind of something we touched on the AR video. The numbers, it didn't really matter when you look at the production last year. Outside of that Taurean Prince stretch early in the year, you could put Vando, you could put Rui in that slot, and it didn't matter. They had a good offense, they had a good defense. The reason I would like Vando there is because it's a very motor-based thing for him. I really love the energy he plays with, and I think you could maybe save yourself from some of those slow starts if you've got him out there as an Energizer Bunny in the beginning of games, because they do sometimes struggle with that, where they get out really, really slow sometimes. So I think that would help a lot. And I think that if you start him, you can slot him better because he's only going to play 20 to 25 minutes as his career thus far has shown. No coach has really played him more than about that. So I think if you start him, you can get him out there early, maybe have him disrupt the rhythm of the best opposition wing player, and maybe bring him in a little bit later and have him do the same thing, start the third quarter, maybe finish the game with him. But you can slot him a lot better at that point. I also like Rui coming off the bench for that offensive punch as another player that can come in and score for you off the bench. And maybe if they put Rui off the bench, they are able to slot him better and run some more sets for him, because last year when he was starting, he was just, and it worked well for him in his efficiency, but he was just oftentimes the guy that's just there and kind of getting the leftovers. So maybe if they have him coming off the bench, they can run a little bit more action for him.
It's a fair point. In terms of just the energy that Vando brings off the opening thrust there for the Lakers. And, I go to Rui simply because that's what they finished last season with. And I want to have, look, one of the things that we talk about JJ not doing what Darvin did, Darvin Ham, the whole point that the Lakers were shouting from the mountaintops, we're going to have continuity. We're bringing back our guys and all that stuff. That was last summer. And then they got to the regular season and Darvin said, continuity? Nah, Taurean, you're starting. I have
think
a feeling
you have continuity, though. You have continuity, though, with that entire core from the year prior. It doesn't really matter who.
Correct.
That was the problem, is that those guys were fighting for minutes, and Taurean's in there starting, and Cam is getting minutes over other guys like Max, who, okay, that makes sense at the start of the season, but more or less as the season went on, that was the problem with the continuity. You have continuity with that entire core of, 6 guys or so with those guys from the year prior.
Well, but Vando didn't play since what? It was January, I think, of last season. Are you worried at all about the rust compared to Rui, who at least played, the Lakers' last playoff game with them?
A little bit, but I think he can knock that off in preseason. That's also another thing too. I thought he looked good in preseason before getting hurt as well, where Taurean was thrust into that. When they were trying to come, that's the one thing about the Darvin thing, is it's really easy to pinpoint specific parts of the season, but they were initially going to have continuity. He was leaning that way before he got hurt, and then I guess he just said, no, screw Rui. He can't be the starting small forward. We're going to put Taurean there. But Vando looked really good in the couple of preseason games or little stint that he had there. So I think he works pretty well. But
get back.
like I said,
think
it doesn't really matter a ton.
I think there
And
was a
another
point.
thing with him,
Go
oh, my
ahead,
bad.
Mark. No,
Another
go.
thing with Vando is he's not a guy that you're running offense for, right? So when it comes to rust, I'm not really too concerned about him because most of his game is about effort, especially obviously defensively, just high energy, things of that nature. So it's more about, for me, conditioning. Is he in good shape? Can he be that guy that, is a pest defensively on every single possession and sets the tone early if he does start, which Donnie suggested. And I'm Rui too, but I'm not mad at you for your line of thinking, especially talking about guarding the other team's best perimeter offensive player. Because if you can start off on him early and he doesn't get into a rhythm, because what if he's already in a rhythm when Vando comes in? Vando can play great defense, and he's not even seeing Vando because the bucket looks like a freaking ocean at that point. So I get your point on that.
Yeah, good point. Great. As T says, that is a great point there, Mark. And you know what? That's something I had not thought of. That the opposing team's best scorer, if you've got Vando to put on him from the get-go, does that mentally kind of get into them a little bit, as opposed to Rui, where maybe they can get some open looks and get into a rhythm. That's a really good point. I had not thought about that. I think ultimately, one of the things that was really cool when you dig into the numbers and maybe encouraging, it's that if it's Rui or if it's Vando, in very different ways, the net is a positive for the Lakers. The only thing you couldn't do was start Taurean Prince, and of course that's exactly what Darvin did.
Man, Darvin.
Oh, Darvin, and Taurean was not bad, but anyway, let's talk. Oh, Maurice said you don't pay a guy $17 million a year for him to come off the bench. Rui should start. There's
that's
truth to that, but there's also it's not like Vando's on a minimum. He's going to make 11 million this season.
Yeah.
So
they're both mid-range contracts. They also paid Rui off the production of the year prior, the postseason, where he was just blistering hot. So, I mean, that makes sense, though. 17 million coming off the bench. But at the same time, it's not like he's on a max contract. So I don't really see a big problem. I'm sure there are other 17 million guys coming off the bench. The point is that he's getting 28 to 32 or so minutes per game. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing that I'm hoping to see in preseason as well as in training camp. And I know he has drawn the ire of Lakers fans. I know he's not anybody's favorite. I know people are ready to kick him to the curb here.
JHS.
But I'd like to see Jalen Hood-Schifino find success.
Oh, I was joking. I thought you meant D'Lo.
Oh no, I was definitely going JHS. And here's the thing. I'm not, and D'Lo could be a good pick too, but I'm not saying I want to see JHS starting or anything like that. I want to see JHS look like a rotation guard. Get to a point where he's a rotation guard. And maybe that's only to help you at some point between now and the trade deadline facilitate a trade. But I think we saw a very different version of Jalen Hood-Schifino in the G League than what we saw at the NBA level. And sometimes there's guys who just look great in the G League and they're not quite good enough at the NBA. That happens. That happens with players. But he specifically talked about how the mental side of things got to him, nerves got to him at the NBA level. I know he's a more talented player than what we saw. I don't know if that's going to equate to NBA success, but I'd like to see a version of JHS, and I'm not asking for a lot here, who could at least hold down a third guard. I'm talking about backup to the backup, third string point guard role for the Lakers. If you can get that, that's at least a step forward. And I think that's something that I'm going to be watching for, because the Lakers did spend some serious draft capital on getting Jalen Hood-Schifino, and it would be really unfortunate if that really does turn out to be just a wasted pick.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he missed Summer League to me was so heartbreaking, because I think he really needed that. I think that would have been great for his development, just to get more reps in. So I kind of feel like he's already behind the 8 ball, but luckily, you got preseason coming up, training camp. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Laker Nation is a little bit too hard on the kid when we really haven't seen him even really play that much, to be quite frank with you. And, I think at the time, people weren't too thrilled with the pick in general. So when you already have that negative connotation towards a player, it kind of sticks with you no matter what they do, unless they just supersede the expectations. So I think he's kind of battling that as well. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him here in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. Same here. I thought a lot of last year he was just in his own head. It just looked like he just wasn't comfortable. He was in his own head. There's something to what I mean, yeah, not everybody's play translates from G League to the NBA, obviously. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more 20 per game stores than we do.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think that some of that is real. Some of that will translate. It's just more or less he needs time to get there and he needs time to get developed as well. That's the problem with him, is that they drafted a player that's a project player in a crowded backcourt position on a team that already has a lot of ball dominant players like LeBron, D'Lo, AR. Obviously, AD needs the ball a good bit. So you have JHS here who needs the ball a lot, and he needs the ball to get reps. So he's not really in a position where he's able to get those reps. He's not in a position where he is able to develop on the court and get chemistry with these guys, playing together with these guys right now. And then you look at other NBA ready prospects, just like Dalton was this year, that were available last year. That's why he gets the ire that he does from the fandom, because I mean, it would be real nice to have some of these other guys that are out there. Specifically, 3 other players were available to them that they didn't take, but they somehow took a project player on a team that really didn't need his services at the moment. So I think that I'd like to see him do some stuff, but realistically, I just think there's so much of a logjam. I don't know if he really is able to get there unless we do have injury issues, which, knocking on wood, we don't want to see. I think really with him last year, like I said, he was in his own head so much. You really know it's bad for a guy like him when he couldn't hold down that role last year. There was no reason they should have had to go get Skylar Mays to fill in that job. That's his chance to show what he can do, and he couldn't do it. So I don't know. I think maybe this year he comes in with renewed confidence and is able to really show what he can do at that point. Because like I said, there's no reason they should have needed to go grab Skylar. I liked Skylar's production as well too.
Yeah, I mean his production was good. You know, he was fun. Skylar Mays was fun to watch, but JHS not being able to hold down that position was certainly concerning. And now I'm hoping we get a better version of him this year. Look, JJ, whatever you do, day 1 of training camp, don't call him the MVP of the day. Please don't do that. Let's not do that to the poor guy. Sticking with the young players, Dalton Knecht. I'm not going to set the bar too high. I don't like setting the bar high for young players. Dalton Knecht, I think the Lakers are going to need him to be a rotation player from opening night. I think they're going to need him to be able to give them 10 to 15 minutes a night from opening night. And we'll do a rotation breakdown soon, but I think they're going to need to be able to give him that kind of minutes and have him handle that. Is that asking too much, do we think? How do you guys feel about Dalton Knecht? Mark, let's go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's too much to handle. And quite frankly, I think it's going to have to be the reality. You know, we were talking about a week or so ago, looking at the roster, and we both agreed I don't see a pathway to where he, at least early on in the season, especially with an 82-game season, you're trying to preserve some of your older bodies, that he doesn't get in the rotation initially. And I think for him, we know that he's a great shooter, but I think something that he can even do more of is attacking off the dribble. And we saw a little bit of that in the summer league. He displayed some of that at Tennessee as well. Mm-hmm. But I think that will determine, obviously we know the defense it is what it is. You know, you just hope that he can at least show some effort and do the best that he can. I think he has some limitations guarding on the perimeter with his skills. He's not a skill set, but his athleticism, moving side to side. Yeah. I think there's some things there that are concerning, but offensively, I think he brings some juice. And if he can be a guy that can not only catch and shoot, you know, off of, you know, LeBron, D'Lo, dribble penetration, if he can actually do that himself, I think that opens up a lot more for this offense, and it can really unlock some things, especially in the JJ Redick system what I envision is going to look like.
Yeah, I agree with everything Mark said. I am really excited to see what Dalton can do. I want to see him not just being a spot up player or coming off screens and shooting. I want to see that athleticism pop. I want to see him on some cuts. I want to see him on some handoffs. I want to see him get moving. I think that he's the type of player, if you use him properly, that could, I don't know if he's got the rookie of the year ceiling, but I think he'd give you maybe about 10 points per game, which is really valuable coming off the bench. My only problem is I just don't know how many minutes he's going to get, because I think there's a huge logjam between 2 and 3 on this team. So maybe 15 minutes at the best, but I think that he's able to, if he's able to get about 15 minutes, I think he'd be a nice player to slot in. Like we mentioned previously on the Vando video, I actually really want to see him play alongside LeBron too. He would be a nice fit with him too.
Who, Dalton with LeBron or Vando?
Dalton. Well,
Dalton,
both really. I like both.
I mean, either, just about anybody. You could really put anybody in that spot. Anybody plus LeBron is good things. But yes, I think Dalton is a good fit there. That floor spacing that he's got, it's the weirdest thing, because he rates out so well at the draft combine in terms of his overall athleticism, but you can see it when he's trying to defend. He just doesn't quite get down low enough in his stance. His side-to-side lateral quickness is just not there. So that's my biggest concern with him. But we know he can score. We know he can get up and throw down. He's got bounce, and he's a 3-level shooter, right? I mean, he could score at the rim. He could score the mid-range. He could score from 3. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I think it's going to be important. What else do you guys have? Throw out another topic here. Another thing that ideally we should start to see in training camp and preseason and all of that.
Well, I brought it up earlier, but okay. I brought it up earlier, but I really do think that aside from Vando, the other player on the team that basically lost the entire season, that's a really big question mark, is Gabe. Is he able to return to form for the year prior? I think that's a huge shot in the arm. If you could get even like 85% of Miami Gabe on this team, that's a huge shot in the arm for this team. So I'm really excited to see if he comes in and he's fully healthy. I really think that he rushed back from his injuries last year. Maybe a little bit because they brought in Dinwiddie. He didn't want to, he didn't want to have his role stolen on the team or something like that, even though he's under contract. I'm not sure about the politics behind the scenes, but it looked like he rushed back to me. He wasn't ready fully. And he also was struggling to find his place to fit in on the team at that time, figure out where his shots were. Then when he got shots, they didn't go in, of course. So I'm really excited to see him get just more chemistry under his belt with this team and be more in another system. I think he probably fits better in an actual system where they're going to run more sets than they did last year. But regardless of the fact that when they actually ran sets last year, they were really good. It's just they didn't run enough of them, in my opinion. So I think maybe this year, if once again JJ does a little bit more of what Darvin wasn't doing, I guess, then maybe you get a better Gabe this year, just byproduct of him being a better system player than he was the year prior. So I think that he could be a really, really big shot in the arm for this team. I'm not like holding out hope for it, but I do think you need that. What is it? $13 million to be useful for you as a player this year on this team.
Yeah, and that's not to say he's suddenly going to become a major trade chip or something like that. But right now, teams are valuing him as a negative, right? They're saying, what are you going to give us to take Gabe Vincent, who has 2 years left on his deal? I think he's at 11 million this season and then maybe 11.5 the next. So if that's the case for the Lakers, because I think that ultimately the Lakers need to make a trade, if not trades, plural, so at some point this season. That needs to come. And if Gabe Vincent is playing well, not only does that help the Lakers on the floor now, but it also could, kind of like with JHS, could help their trade efforts if teams can look at him and say, well, okay, last season was clearly an injury thing. He's back to being himself. That's a guy that we're interested in signing. Because, I mean, look, it's insane. Look at his three-point percentage. 2 seasons ago, 37% from 3. The season before last, 33% from 3. Last season, 11%? And I'm rounding up to get there? I mean, we know that's not – there's a much better version of Gabe Vincent that's in there. And I do think last season was interesting. Even when he was healthy, he was in a terrible slump. But I can't believe that the guy we saw last season is simply who he is anymore. There's got to be on that level that he can get back to. Like you said, if he even gives 85% of what he used to be, it's such a different player than what we saw last season.
Yeah, I'm throwing away last season. I took for me, and you can call that Bell or whatever you want, but it's just not too big of a sample size, and it's too big of an outlier compared to his previous seasons, especially in terms of 3-point shooting. So I'm willing to throw that out the window for Gabe Vincent and give him a clean slate this year. But for me, you're talking about maybe biggest question marks or things to look forward to. How about Christian Wood? You know, a couple weeks ago, we obviously saw the tweet. He was talking about how he's going to be back and better, coming back with a vengeance and things of that nature. Obviously, still don't have that backup center that you want ideally on the roster. And, he's only 6'9", so he's not the biggest guy in terms of height and weight, like that physical bruising type of guy. But we do know that he has the offensive skill set. He can shoot the basketball. He could put the ball on the floor as well. He can provide some level of rim protection with his length and athleticism. So I am curious to see what he looks like, and does he play into the plans of JJ Redick, which I think he may, considering his offensive ability, and he can shoot the outside shot as well for a big.
That's a great point. Christian Wood, I do think if he can be at his best, I actually like what Christian Wood provides better than what Jackson Hayes provides, even though Hayes is younger, has more bounce to him and all of that. But it's not quite as extreme as Gabe Vincent. But look at this. You go back, 5 seasons? Christian Wood, 39% from 3, 37% from 3, 39%, 38%. Pretty damn consistent. High 30% last season with the Lakers. Oh, 31%. He just never got quite into the rhythm that he needed to. And I'll tell you, there was a point early in the season when the Lakers' best shot at a win was Christian Wood, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis on the floor together. And then it felt like Darvin went away from that and then just kind of never went back to it. I think there's more there to Christian Wood than what we saw. I'm not saying he's a world beater. I'm not saying he's leading the Lakers to a championship. I'm not saying he solves the problems at center. But I think there's more to Christian Wood than what we saw last season. And I am cautiously optimistic that we're going to get a better version of him this coming season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Christian can do. I thought he looked really good in the early season defensively with the defensive rebounding. He had that very loud game against KD and the Suns where he was on him. And I thought he looked really good. And for whatever reason, we just went away from it. I think the thing with the team is like, yeah, you want to have a big bruising center for those matchups against Embiid or Jokic. But I think just going bigger in general looks really good on this team, and it works pretty well. So slotting Christian in as a starter or getting heavy minutes, either one will work very well for this team too.
Are you Christian Wood over Jackson Hayes or the other way around, Donnie?
I mean, he's clearly the more talented player. There were a few games where Jackson looked really good out there towards the end of the season, but Jackson's a bit of a mixed bag. Some games he's looked really good, and then some games he looked terrible, couldn't stop fouling, was jumping too much. He's just a little bit of a mixed bag. I think you get more consistent production out of Christian as long as he knows his role, so I would lean that way. And like I said, he's also just flat out just a better player, so I would like to Christian is a player that shouldn't be on a minimum, if we're being honest. He's good enough not to be on that minimum contract, so I would take him for sure.
So taking a quick peek here over at Cleaning the Glass, the trio of LeBron James, Christian Wood, Anthony Davis, these 3 players on the floor together, not enough possessions, only 260. That's what I'm saying. They went away from it. But in 216 possessions, plus 23.7 per 100 possessions.
Yeah.
That's it. That's insane. Like that makes you, again, we talk about, will JJ make the same mistakes Darvin did? Why would you go away from that? Why? It makes no sense.
All the worst lineups in here have Torian in them. God dang it, Torian. No. There's some good ones. Never mind.
There's some good
Actually, Torian was really good, but Darvin was he was setting him up for failure. These are some wonky lineups. He's got LeBron, Torian, Max, Wood, AD. LeBron point guard lineup. That's a fun one. 10 possessions. Yeah, I don't know why you'd go away from it, though, if it's so successful in the aggregate.
Darvin.
Overthinking it, man. Making it more difficult than it has to be.
Yeah, he definitely did that. There was that one. It's just a black mark where you can just see that one stretch where he was clearly throwing darts at the board. Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe this will work. Okay, maybe that'll work. he was just trying and just like nothing
Please,
was working.
something work.
Right after the in-season tournament, right, where they just imploded. So he was struggling. So that's more or less what happened there too. But Christian also, I think, got hurt too. Didn't pretty much everyone on this team got hurt.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with this the setup for last year. Everyone got hurt except for the Stars.
I believe aside from the Memphis Grizzlies, there was no team that saw more players miss games due to injury than the Lakers, which most people don't think of because LeBron and AD stayed relatively healthy. But everybody else got hurt with the exception of Austin Reeves, who played all 82, but somehow didn't start all 82. Again, Darvin. All right, let's see here. John said if you could combine Rui and Vando. Oh, yeah, if you could turn them into one player, you mean?
Oh, yeah.
We could Frankenstein them?
Oh my gosh.
You may have an all-star right there if you
I'm
can
gonna
do
say
that.
that's a borderline all-star.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the question and answer portion of the show. I think we went over a number of different things that we would like to see that would be ideal to see from the Lakers as we get into training camp, as we get into preseason, all that. Covered some good topics, but let's get into some of your questions and comments. We'll hit some of the super chats here first. Well, Daniel says, just not even a question, just says fire Pelinka. I mean, I would have to imagine. I mean, maybe not, but I would have to imagine if things don't go well this season, that seat for Rob Pelinka is going to get hot. It has to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think what would it take for him to get fired? Like, I guess missing the playoffs?
And I think there's an ESPN article that projects the Lakers to finish 11th.
So not even in the play-in.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Who's
I think the Lakers have become underrated at this point.
You know who the author is, Trev. You can't just put that out there.
Yeah, I think the floor. This is still a playing team for the floor. I don't see any scenario, barring obviously catastrophic injury, but this team does not at least make the play-in.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, let's get
playing at least.
Let's go here. Ryan said thoughts on Max starting at the 2 with D'Lo and Vando. So it would be D'Lo, Max, Vando, LeBron, AD. I mean, I like the defense.
I like the defense. I like the rebounding. I like the spacing for the most part. You have 2 players on that setup that could be a little bit of a question mark, but if used correctly, I'm not really worried about it. I think it would fit pretty well too. And then you also have 2 players in that group that don't need the ball in their hands, that are not expecting a lot of stuff to be ran for them. So I think maybe the distribution on shots looks really good with that setup too.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. It's just for me, Max hasn't really done anything to warrant a starting job, and that's kind of more maybe the politics of this.
Sure.
You know, it just wouldn't be a good look. You know, for
you say like he hasn't earned it.
Yeah.
So,
but
like
as far as
not starting Patrick Mahomes his rookie season, making him earn it, and then taking over.
Hey, if Max turns into the Patrick Mahomes of the NBA, then the Lakers are in great hands.
Let's do that.
We'd love to see that happen. So is there anything he can do in training camp or preseason to show that he's deserving of that top? Because when you do that, you're obviously removing AR from the group.
Yeah.
So it's a question of whether or not maybe he fits better in that group or he's playing better than AR. I don't know if there's anything he could do to earn that spot realistically.
One thing I will say though, I don't think you have to worry about ego as far as AR saying that I have to start. Like I don't get that from him to where he's going to cause a issue in the locker room or anything like that, to where like, how is Max starting over me? So maybe on other teams in situation like that, you'll have to worry about that when it comes to like a guy that's more established. You got this young guy hasn't really done anything, but I don't see Austin Reeves as being that guy. And then even though he wouldn't start in this scenario, he's going to play starter minutes and he's going to be in the closing lineup more often than not. So the only difference is you want to hear your name called. with the flashing lights at the beginning of the game.
I think that it would require some things to happen in order for Max to start over Austin. And I don't think it's likely. This is where we wind up. But I don't even think that it would all have to be Max greater than sign Austin Reeves. Like Max would have to come out just on fire. He would have to look like a new version of Danny Green and just completely fit better with D'Lo. But I also think the Lakers' other guards would have to really struggle. I'm talking about Gabe Vincent. I'm talking about JHS, to the point where JJ says, I really need Austin to run the second unit because none of these other guys are doing it. These guys aren't holding it down. And so for the team concept, we need Austin really taking over this bench unit and just running with it. And here's the ball and go. And so I think it would require those guys to falter as well. In addition to, I think Max looking really, really good. I don't know that he's ready to start just yet, Max. And I'm very high on Max Christie. I just don't know if he's ready to be thrown into a starting lineup just yet. Mid-season, maybe there's a trade that shakes some things up and then we revisit this. But I don't know if I want to just throw Max into the deep end at this point. I think I'd rather still bring him off the bench for the time being.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense.
Let's go here. Hey, Chris said, if what Pat Bev said was true about the team not practicing enough with Darvin, then I have a little bit of hope this season with a more experienced coaching staff. Winning 47 games without much practice is not bad. I mean, Pat Bev was around the season before, but yeah, I mean, the story, and I'm paraphrasing, from Patrick Beverley was that Darvin actually called him to apologize for not saying, yeah, I guess we should have practiced more. Now, LeBron and AD, like, they're not going to practice a lot. Most NBA teams, a lot of people think, oh, they practice a bunch. I think we counted them last season, or maybe the season before. They practiced like 13 or 14 times over the course of a season. Because if there's only one day between games, they'll do film work and everything, but they're not going to actually get like a formal practice in. You need 2 days off in a row, typically, to get like an actual practice. We're talking about practice. So them not practicing a lot maybe isn't all that out of the ordinary, but it sounds like Darvin went even further to the extreme when they needed to get more opportunities to practice. So I would have to imagine JJ, again, is not going to make the same mistakes that Darvin did. And I think that's part of what was coming out of the Lakers, too, when they were searching for a coach, was that they wanted somebody who was going to be really hardworking and a grinder and all that, which kind of suggests that Darvin was not that, right? So yeah, I mean, I would have to think that we're going to see them, doing more, working more than what they did under Darvin Ham.
One thing I love for JJ Redick's case here, even though he's a first-time head coach, considering it's the same roster pretty much, just to be good or decent, he just has to do what Darvin Ham didn't do. Just do the opposite. Like, the blueprint is already there of what not to do with this roster. So that's like already like the face value, ground level things that he can do already to be just adequate as a head coach.
It's going to hit like a ton of bricks when we enter the season, and he's doing the same things Darvin did.
Don't say that, Donnie. Come on, man.
Oh, no. Don't put that on us. Come on.
Like, you had all this evidence and you still chose to do the same thing.
No. I want JJ to come out wearing pants, opening night, wearing pants that have no pockets in them.
No, hands in the pockets for sure. He needs to do it just so we get the picture. So we can troll him for it. And he needs to recreate the defend without fouling chalkboard thing.
Oh, right. Mamadou said Rui should come off the bench because if he starts, we don't know who's going to be our scorer off the bench. Okay, so the bench unit as of now would be what? It would be Gabe, Max. Would it be? It would be either Vando or Rui, I suppose. Yeah. Christian Wood, Dalton Connect.
Dalton.
Yeah. So Dalton Connect can score, but I get the point, right? Like, do you want your primary scorer out of that bunch to be Dalton Connect, maybe, or maybe Christian Wood? Probably not.
It's a fair
really
point, matter a ton. It doesn't matter a ton because LeBron or AD. Some combination of LeBron, AD, Dio, and AR is going to be out on the
They'll
court.
always be on the court.
Two of those guys are always going to be out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
as long as they're slotted correctly, they'll be out there, with like two of those guys at any given moment. So you don't have to have 15, 20 point per game scorer coming off the bench.
It's not like a full line change that we see. There's going to
Yeah.
be mixing and matching and all of that. Samuel said, what would be the hesitation of a D'Lo or Austin with Vando, Rui, Braun, AD lineup? So Donnie, I mean, this was the lineup that you suggested. Why should they not do that? Like, what's the downside of doing this, using Vando as the 2 and just saying you're going to defend the opposing team's best perimeter player, whether it's a 1, 2, or 3, whatever, Vando, you're going to tackle that night in, night out?
I don't actually see a reason not to do it, if I'm being honest with you. I don't really see much of a problem. I think where I would see the problem is with when it comes time to start swapping. Maybe you have to pull one of these 3, LeBron, Vando, Rui, pull one of them a bit early so you can slot them better on later when another forward needs to go to the bench. But that's about it. I don't really see much of a problem with it. You've got the scoring you need. You've got some spacing in theory. I think D'Lo, one of the things with him is like he gets a lot of flack, but as a high volume shooter, he's going to tie a lot of these lineups together as well on this team. You got playmaking. You got your best players out there. I don't really see much of a problem personally. And it's not like Vando, if he were to play that position, is like some 6'9", non-mobile guy. The dude's super mobile and agile. He's got good size, good wingspan. He could guard any position 1 through 4. I don't really see much of a problem personally. And it takes the burden off of D'Lo, and it puts AR in the bench role where we talked about you don't need another guy like that, but if you could get another guy, okay, particularly a playmaker, that's fine coming off the bench. The more I talk about it, I think more I like it. I also got to roll with it from the last video.
I can hear yourself talking yourself into it.
Yeah, I kind of like it a little bit. I kind of like it. I'm gonna try it in 2K,
man.
My concern would be the 3-point shooting, because AD, like if it was AD from 2020, okay,
Yeah,
but you've got 2 non-floor spacers out there, and you can mitigate that, you can overcome that. But I think that's the weakness of this group, right? Because I don't think it's going to be rebounding with that much size on the floor. I think that group should be able to rebound the basketball. I think you're going to have a lot of boxes checked, but I also think the paint is going to be packed with this group.
Is that the same problem they have with any setup where they run a non-spacing center in the lineup? Like, it's the exact same situation, except it's probably a little bit worse in aggregate because Vando's probably better than that player at the things on the margins, depending on who it is anyway. Like if it's Jonas, for example, plugged in there, I think Vando fits better if we're making that comparison, because Jonas would be more of a specialized matchup where you would need him. And I mean, as evidenced by us playing them last year, he may even get played off the court, in that matchup as well that you'd want him for. So I'm not really so sure.
I'm still hurt we didn't get Valanciunas, man.
Yeah, we should have got him. You need the option. That's what it is. You need the option.
That's just it. Like, people keep saying, oh, well, you can't play him in this matchup or that matchup or whatever. Yeah, but there's a lot of matchups you can use him in. Yeah. And that's why we've been talking about, the Lakers need a big. Does it need to be a big that is making so much money that he has to play every single night?
No,
probably not, because there's going to be situations where you're not going to have that guy playing, where Anthony Davis at center is the correct path, but you want to have the option to go bigger, like they had when they had those guys, Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, which kind of worked, and they won a championship. So obviously different version of Anthony Davis back then, but still you want the option of being able to go big. And right now they don't truly have that on the roster. And I thought that should be top of the list in terms of things that they fixed this summer. And they didn't do that or anything else for that matter this summer.
How different is AD now from AD in 2021? Because they ran it back in terms of having bigs, non-spacing bigs out there. I mean, you had Mark, but you also had Drummond, you had Trez. So how different is AD's game now from then? I wonder. I need to look at it. But his shooting capability.
The shooting was very
he was
different.
Blistering in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, he was even taking little step back threes and stuff and hitting those. And,
oh, man.
I mean, he looks very different. I'll tell you what, though, and this is maybe even a little bit concerning. I kind of think he moved different back then.
Oh
Like,
yeah, you
there's
can
a
watch
little bit-
highlights of him. And he
Right?
looks
Yeah.
nothing like that player anymore.
Yeah,
I
he was
saw
much,
2020 highlights. He doesn't look anything like that. He's much more
Uh-uh.
slow, lumbering. He doesn't look anything like that.
yeah, he
But
was
the impact
way
is
more
still
slow.
there. He's dominating as a center, and he looks different. He plays different. His game's different. He's not shooting as many of those shots, and he's still dominating. So he's still giving you production. So I'm cool with that. But he doesn't look anything like he used to. That's the one thing too. It's not just the shooting. Is that when people say we want to put AD at the 4, we want to run that 2020 thing back. Just he doesn't look like that anymore. He just some of that's just the weight. I'm not sure what it is. But to me,
He's
this
older.
is not to disparage AD. He is older. He looks like he's older than he is though when he's out there. Sometimes the way he moves, like physically, he looks like he struggles to like he's lumbering, struggling to get up and down the court. I really noticed that when Jokic was beating him up and down the court every play. Like that really stands out to me. Like Jokic is beating you up and down the court 2 playoffs in a row.
Forgetting that you actually know who looks older, LeBron or AD, with the way they move.
I think AD kind of cheats with those long arms. He just kind of stretches those arms out a little bit. but LeBron still moves. He's a little bit more stiffer, a little bit more floor bound than he used to be. But I mean, he still gets up and down fast, still jumps super high. So maybe I'd like to say LeBron, but like I said, I think AD really is the one. But it looks a little different because he's got those longo extendo man arms over there. So
Yeah, it does help. Although
I think
you know,
I think AD looks older, man. I just can't stop thinking about LeBron in the open court. I still think he's the most dangerous guy in transition in the league. Still,
LeBron did not like the oldest. He didn't look like the oldest dude on that Olympic team. For example.
not at all.
Not even close.
And maybe I mean LeBron is probably the worst example you could pick because LeBron makes basically everybody look like look like they're older than he is, especially at almost 40 years old.
Yeah,
it's amazing the stuff that he's doing, but still, yeah. Oh, the gray in LeBron's beard makes him look older. Yeah. Whatever.
I like that he stopped dyeing it this offseason. I like it. Because he's had it for a while. He just would dye it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like that LeBron looked insane in the Olympics because of the gray in his beard, or like he was just playing so well. He was
I
insane.
think he's playing so well.
Bit of both. All right, let's do one more. We will save a few of the questions for our next show. Let's go here. This is a guy who has not, I mean, let's face it, there were a lot of fans who were disappointed when he picked up his player option. Cam Reddish. Mamadou says, I was watching Cam Reddish highlights from earlier in the season. If he can get back like that defensively, he can be in the rotation. There was a point last season when Cam Reddish was a useful defensive player, and then injuries hit, just like we talked about with Christian Wood. We talked about with a number of other guys. Remember we had that stretch where Cam would come back for a game, and then he'd go out again, and he'd be out for a game, 2 games, 3 games. He'd come back for a game, be right back out, and he just never got back to being the guy that we saw maybe in November, December, somewhere in that range. There was a point where Cam was doing some good things for the Lakers. It was not an extended stretch of the season, but the glasses half full take on Cam Reddish is that injuries were what really robbed him of his quality of play last season, and that maybe there is a bounce back coming this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about that stretch. I believe it was around mid-November. He had about a 5-6 game stretch. He was averaging about close to 15 points a game over 6-ish games, shot about 50%, shot pretty good from 3, played good defense. And then after that, kind of just faded away. He had a couple of good games in December, but yeah, I mean, he has the measurables, right? I mean, he's 6'7", about 220 pounds. He can move his feet side to side. He's a decent shooter. I mean, it's hard for me to place him on this roster right now, though, because it seems like he's kind of caught in this log jam. We were talking about the rotation about 10 minutes ago, and I don't think we even brought his name up. We named like 10 guys. So, and then you got Dalton Connect there, similar position. It's hard, man. It's tough for Cam, and I hate it for him because he's a guy that I really, really was high on out the draft coming out of Duke.
I think there's a crazy logjam from 1, 2, and 3 on this team. I just really do. There's a lot of players slotted in that range, and Cam is one of those guys. So Cam had that stretch, like we talked about, where he was in, he was out, he was in, he was out, and he was just. It was almost like he should have just stayed out until he was fully healthy, but he couldn't do that for whatever reason, probably because of contractual things, maybe trying to play his way into a better contract, maybe keep the momentum prior to that stretch where he looked really good. Because I'll be honest, up to that in-season tournament before he started having these problems, I thought Cam was definitely leaving and going to get a bag somewhere. Like, he looked really, really good for this team.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that another thing that happened to him later was he started pressing a little bit, started doing more wonky things with the ball. He was playing outside of the role that he was given, where he was more or less a corner shooter, catch and shoot, defensive player. He started trying to dribble more, do more wonky things that didn't really go his way, and take lower IQ shots is what I'd like to say. And then it all kind of compounded on him with the injuries as well. So he kind of got outside of himself. I think if Cam can come back and give you what he gave you for the first third of the season, then I'd like him on this team, and I think he's deserving of a rotation spot. I just am not sure where those minutes are coming from if you don't make some sort of move somewhere. So,
and that move is yet to come. I mean, so far the Lakers have been hesitant to make a trade that doesn't clearly advance the team forward, which I understand, but so far here we are. It's September and we're still waiting for a Lakers trade. Probably going to be waiting until closer around the trade deadline, because it's not often that a trade happens this time of year. I will finish with this one because this is a good segue into tomorrow's show that's going to drop, video that's going to drop on Austin Reeves. And Tony and I broke down Austin. So DeWitt said, I feel like Austin's growth in year 4 will be super underrated for this team. Still easily averages 16 plus a game while struggling a lot throughout the year. I think Austin's growth is going to be extremely important for next season's team. We talk about it a lot on the Austin Reeves breakdown video that we did, broke down where he found success last season, some areas where he needed to improve upon. And so that's going to be coming out soon. But I know, look, Austin is going to be extremely important for this team. If they're going to get where they want to go, Austin probably needs to take another step forward in his development and step into an even bigger role. And I think he's up to it. I'm excited to see what he can do in JJ Redick's system, but there's a lot, I think, riding on the play of Austin Reeves next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've said it time and time again. I'm really, really interested to see what JJ Redick's plan is for Austin Reeves. He's been speaking very highly of him, and I think with this new philosophy and offense, I think you're going to see the best version of Austin Reeves this season. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yep, agreed. I wonder how close we are to prime Reeves. He's a little bit of an older guy, so it's got to be really soon.
Yeah, he's already 26. I mean, there's not.
I think this is the first year of it right here.
Yeah, it's like
right. Prime Austin.
We're right on the. Yep.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking about as well after the video. I was like, yeah, AR is a bit of an older guy, so he's a little bit further along. So we're gonna hit that prime a little bit sooner. So sometime in the next couple of years, he's gonna be the best version of himself. So why not have that be next year?
Yeah, what better time than now? Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Everybody, thank you for joining. We appreciate all of you for hanging out with us here, talking some Lakers basketball. We know the NFL is starting up just hours away. We know the Lakers, their season doesn't start up for, now 29 days till we get to see them on the floor for preseason action. But we appreciate you all being here. And, of course, we're going to be breaking down everything all season long. You can hang out with us during the games. After the games, we'll be here. All the news, all the rumors, everything you need, you can find right here on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel. So make sure you guys, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe. Like this video. Donnie, Mark, this was a blast, guys. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yep, same here. No problem.
All right, everybody. Thank you again. Till next time. See ya. And stay safe.